Hello, everyone. Well, today's guest is somebody I would consider to be a mover and a shaker. He's a writer, a producer, a director, and he and I have something in common. Neither one of us care about the numbers. Ladies and gentlemen, Chris Rogers. Welcome to the show, Chris.
Thank you, Nancy. Thank you.
I'm right in believing that we don't care about the numbers, right?
We do not. Sorry about my phone. My phone is just acting really weird today. Okay, I need to get it set up properly in the right position. Okay, this I think is okay.
All right. So now let's talk about your career, what you do for a little bit. You know, you're a writer, producer, director. So first of all, when did you get involved in those things?
Well, way back from New York, and way back then I dabbled while I was in college, and I did an internship actually, and that's how I first got introduced to the industry.
Yeah.
And after that internship, I sort of was still not sure, and by fluke, I got hired for a commercial. And that commercial was that one, I think, experience that sparked my interest in getting into the industry or being a part of it in some way. But I still at that point didn't know how I was going to do it.
Now, being part in that commercial, like I've done some acting for video college students, you know, so you get to see all of the workings behind the scene, right?
Yes. It's well, what it does, or what it did for me at that time was it opened me up because it actually happened to be in the middle of Shea Stadium. That commercial was for a writer, former writer of, I think, New York Newsday paper. He was a sports writer, and his name was Mike Lupica, if I'm correct. Yeah, I think it's Mike Lupica. And he was doing a commercial, but the commercial happens to be filmed in the middle of Shea Stadium. And I've never been in a stadium before, so I'm like looking around like, wow, like on center field, pretty much. And I was just like, this seems so glamorous and exciting, you know, because you see that stuff on TV.
Right.
But actually being in a stadium, and I've seen so many commercials in stadiums and so many games, but being physically there was just so exciting to me. And that was that moment. I'm like, I want to do this. I don't know how, I don't know what I want to do. I want to be involved in this industry.
So what came first, the writing, the producing, or the directing?
Well, the thing, after working in the industry for a bit, I kind of looked around because I'm a creative person. Mm-hmm. And actually, even at that time, I wasn't even aware of my creativity within it. And it's funny how you discover things, right? So I was sort of like, yeah, I want to do this. I want to work in this industry, but what can I do? Where at some point? And when I did settle on what sort of career path within the industry that I wanted to do, it was producing, because I always felt like I never considered becoming an actor. You know, some people would like to be an actor, they want to be in front of the camera. And don't get me wrong, I think entertainers are born, I believe true entertainers are born, right? And there can, how should I say it? For me as a creative person, I felt like I had more to offer behind the scenes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
I had more to offer behind the scenes. So I thought about it, and I decided becoming a producer would be it would just help me and my soul. It would feed my soul. And that's why I made that decision. Only until later, I decided to become an actor. I mean, not an actor. That was a fucking slip there. I decided to become a director. And the only reason I decided, again, it was by, how should I say it? I wouldn't say I was pushed into it. It was a decision made out of frustration because I was working with a couple. I partnered with a few people, and there were just things I did not agree with on a creative level. Mm-hmm. And being a producer, I don't have like the power, the influence to be like, this is absolutely how it's going. Because we were doing low budget stuff that was little personal stuff here and there. And I decided, you know what, I'm going to try my hand, because I never wanted to be that guy, like the director. You know, most people want to become a director, right? They're like, director is the most powerful person on set. Actually, that's not really true. It's the producer or producers.
Oh, okay.
Directors are usually hired hands, and I'm not putting down directing. I'm being honest from my observation, and again, it's my personal opinion. Some directors, they're also an executive producer, then yet they have more influence. But an executive producer can say to the director, "You're fired," and he's done, right? But going back to what the original question is, like, directing to me came through necessity as opposed to me having ambition to want to go in that direction.
Yeah, you look around and see what's happening and it's not going right, so you step in, basically, right?
Yeah. And well, also another thing was I saw a lot of stubbornness and sort of like where people, they don't understand when it comes to art and creativity, it's a collaborative effort. Unless you're a painter, where you just have your canvas and it's just you and your canvas. When it comes to filmmaking and creative endeavors and that sort of medium, you have to be a team player.
Right.
You know, and without that, it becomes just a dictatorship where one person runs everything and that one person thinks he or she is the smartest person in the room and they have all the brilliant ideas. And of course, when the credits come around, they want to hog all the credit. So they don't look at it. And I've worked with some people like that.
Yeah.
And what I realized is there's a lot of ego just running rampant in the industry. And I'm the type of person, like, when I do a project, I say to my production assistants, the PAs, I'm like, if you see something creatively that would add to my project, please let me know. And they give me that look like, what? And I'm like, yes, we all a team.
Yeah.
But people don't do that. They're just like, you know, it's my idea and this is what I want to do and this is how it's going to be done.
Yeah, like tunnel vision.
Tunnel vision. And that's sad. It actually, the art suffers. Sorry for being so long-winded.
No, this is great. This is great. Now, what about the writing?
The writing part, I have to admit, Nancy, is the most challenging. I actually want to take a couple workshops on writing, because what I realized, like, again, I believe writers are born, editors are born. It's hard for me to focus. I'm like a child, sort of, like the way my mind works. If I sit down to write and I hit writer's block, which I do often, it just gets me in a place of frustration, because I'm like, why? I mean, I can think of a million things at the same time and in my head be in 20 different places. But when it comes to writing, and what I find the most challenging about writing is dialogue. So I started watching masterclasses. with Quentin Tarantino and a couple great film writers. And what I took away from them, I came up with a method on my own later, which helps. But what I learned specifically, I think it was Terrence Malick, who was a great writer, director, if I'm correct, and Quentin Tarantino, because I love his dialogue in his movies. And what Quentin Tarantino said was, look at your friends and family if you want to learn to write dialogue, because he was challenged too, but he became, he's Quentin Tarantino.
Yeah.
Pick a friend or a close friend and write your characters, kind of mimicking the speech patterns and the thought patterns of that person. And soon enough, you'll find your writing flowing better, because that's a familiar person. You know how they sound, their inflection, whatever it is, you can take, right?
Yes.
And incorporate it. And that's what helped him. But I've tried it and it helped me somewhat, yes. But the other thing to combat for me, writer's block, was bringing out 2 or 3 scripts at the same time. And when I get writer's block in one, I immediately jump to the other one. So I have fresh ideas for that. Right. And I jump to the third. So I usually keep 3 scripts open. So by the time I hit the writer's block on the first one, I'll jump to the second one, which is a totally different genre.
Right.
And I'm writing, and then an idea would come while I'm writing in that different headspace. So that works for me, actually.
Right. Well, I think it's interesting, because when you talk about Tarantino, it's like, so you take out of that what you learned, out of that what you needed, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And developed your own way after that.
And came up with my own way after that. Because again, we all process things differently, at different rates, at different speeds, different, and it may have worked for him, but it worked for me somewhat, but I still felt like I had to do something. And that 3 scripts idea actually works for me. Yes.
Very good. Now, I know you have a business. Is that pronounced Savan Entertainment?
So Van Entertainment.
So Van.
And yeah, I struggled with that one because I wanted to come up with something like New York or Brooklyn. I wanted a link to where I came from, or,
Right.
you know. And just for the record, I was born in the Caribbean, but I grew up, I just went to New York as a teen, early teen. And I grew up, I spent almost 30 years, 25 to 30 years there. I wanted someone to link it. I wanted to use my grandmother's name, who was my favorite. I wanted to use something. And then I'm sitting there and I'm like, no, I live in Vancouver. I love Vancouver. So why don't I call it So Van? So Vancouver. Yeah. I like it. I mean, I know it's not so original, but I was happy because it's my company's name. And I wanted to, just do something along those lines and represent Vancouver, because I think Vancouver or BC, although we have a deluge of film, there's so many filming projects that come from Hollywood, that comes from the States, but we don't get our due. They never mention Vancouver in entertainment. It's always Vancouver subbing for New York, or Vancouver subbing for Seattle. So I wanted to name my company So Van to represent Vancouver.
All right. So, but by the way, what brought you to Vancouver?
Well, let's say what I think I'll repurpose that question. What brought me to Canada?
Yeah, okay.
Because it was a relationship.
Oh, okay.
I met someone, and they were from BC, and we ended up visiting because I never felt Edmonton. I visited Edmonton, and it was just something about it that I knew wouldn't gel with my soul.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And my partner at the time, I'm like, if I move to Canada, it has to be Vancouver. And she was like, what? I'm like, it has to be Vancouver. If it's not, I'm not, we'd just stay in our respective countries.
Yeah.
And that's how I ended up here. Yeah.
No, I know you were thinking about this, doing something else, or maybe you've already started it, and that's a podcast.
Yes. So, oh my, yes. The podcast idea, because I watch a couple of podcasts, and what I find interesting is that people have sort of niche sort of like topics and areas that they explore. Yeah. And I never wanted to pigeonhole, or I didn't want to put myself in that box. I want to talk to everyone and anyone. And I think as a storyteller and a creative person, the reason I went in that direction is because, let's say we do a podcast about waffles, right? How many different types of waffles are there out there? So when you hit that end, where else do you go? Do you create your own waffles now? So to me, the whole idea, I wasn't trying to reinvent the wheel. I just want to. So I watch a couple podcasts out there, and I'm sure you've heard of Joe Rogan.
Yes.
I want my podcast, and I'm not ashamed to say this, to sort of pattern. I mean, we don't have the same personalities, and we don't have the same background, which is unique in and of itself. But what I like about the Joe Rogan podcast or the Joe Rogan experience is that he talks to anyone and everyone. Today he's talking to Macaulay Culkin, the Home Alone kid. Again, right. He's talking to him, and tomorrow he's smoking weed with Elon Musk. I would never smoke weed in my show. I would never, because I don't smoke. I don't participate. But I like that. Different ends of the spectrum, right? How far apart can these two people be in real life? And then he's talking to a former CIA agent today. Tomorrow he's talking to a bodyguard for the stuff. Like, it's just so varied. I love that. And you will never run out of topics, so to speak.
That's what I like about what I do too. The more diversity, the better I like it, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So have you started working on that, on your podcast, when you're going to get it going, or do you have any immediate plans?
Yes. So I've had the idea for a while, and believe it or not, I've bought 90% of the gear that I need. And I just acquired my third camera for my podcast. So, one on the host, one on the guest, and one for 2 shots. I just got that last week. And what I have to do, or what I want to do, I'm sort of a gear nerd. So, I can do what I need to do with the gear that I have now. But there are other gears that just came out that would help me. It would help with my post-production flow, so to speak. So the Black Magic came out with this thing called an ATEM Mini, and it's a live switcher. You can switch, and it does the editing for you. So again, with me, I don't like editing, right? So I didn't. Sorry, I didn't.
Yeah, no, I know what you're saying, because I used to have a team before COVID, and
Yes.
we had that. We had a 3-camera setup, and it was wonderful.
Yes.
But that person also, the main camera person, she was also the director and the editor, and she did a fabulous job.
Yes.
Editing, so I don't. This goes out the way it is. Period.
Yeah, it's totally fine. It's a lot of work. So to me, again, I'm doing it alone. And I was sitting there and I'm like, you know what? I need to hire someone. I mean, I know, I'm not a wealthy guy. I mean, I could afford to hire someone per episode to come in and help with the technical part of it, have them doing the switching at the board.
Yes.
And I can just focus on my guest and focus on whatever subject matter we're dealing with.
Yeah.
And I think that's the direction I'm going to go, because my first episode, I want to do like just a 1-camera thing where I'm talking and setting up, this is what I'm coming down the pike and this is what I'm going to be doing. But the actual production of my podcast, I want it to be the multi-camera, and I want to have that workflow where it's automatic and I just have to go in and do touches, because it's a lot of work.
But it's so beautiful when you have that 3-camera setup.
Yeah, it looks professional. So you talking, you switch, you switch between the 2 shots, or you switch between the 1 shot. You saying something that's interesting, having the camera on you and the audience engaging and seeing you in that way, it's way better than having that wide. So I turn nerdy when it comes to that kind of stuff, and I'm like, you know what? There are 2 extra pieces of gear. It's Rode makes one, and Black Magic makes one. That's switcher and the audio mixer. And I have an audio mixer already, but it's a basic one. But I want the shiny new one that does the bells and whistles, and the ATEM Mini video switcher, which links up together with the audio, makes it seamless. So in the end, I'll spend probably 30 minutes as opposed to 3 hours working on the post part.
Absolutely. So you have anything else coming up other than working on your podcast?
Other than the podcast, I have 2 short films that I'm currently on the 3rd draft of them, which I'm writing, that I'm going to be directing, hopefully before the year is out. And next year, I do have a project, which is it's a little bit crazy. It's that one project I think is gonna, and I think every creator or creative person thinks that, there's that one project that's gonna take me from here to there. It's a movie, actually. It's a movie that's out there called Leon the Professional, and it was done by a French director named Luc Besson. And he had a young Natalie Portman in there. And I watched that movie, and it has a huge cult following. And there was just something about the story. There's something about that movie. It wasn't a big budget movie, but it was the character. Gary Oldman was in there, a younger Gary Oldman. And what's his name? Jean Reno. I so butchered his name there. Jean Reno, who is a French actor. Sorry, Jean. And a young 13-year-old Natalie Portman and a younger Gary Oldman. And the movie was so interesting. It was action, but there was a real story. And it was about a relationship between this hardened assassin, stone cold killer, and a young, innocent, but kind of smart, intelligent girl. And her family got wiped out, and he took her under his wing, and he ended up dying to save her.
Right.
And I always wondered, Nancy, what happened to that movie, and the characters touched me so much. I've seen so many other films. I've seen hundreds of films. But there was something about that little action film with the great storytelling, the great characters. And Matilda, the character, was left alone as a 12-year-old kid, okay, into the world. She was just released back into the world with major trauma. And I always wondered what happened to her. Oh, like, I know it's not real, but I was like, what would have happened to Matilda? And one day I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do a part 2, an homage, so to speak, to this movie, my own version. I'm going to fund it myself. I'm going to gather some film friends, and we're going to shoot this thing.
Sounds awesome.
Yes, and I know I'm getting overly excited, but it's just the moment I came up with the idea to write it,
Yeah.
the idea just started flowing, like the story. And all I had to do was put it on, just write it, because it was in my head, right? I knew how it ended. I knew how it began. I knew the middle. And I struggled with my other writing. That one just came, it just flew.
So it's like,
So
it's like it's meant to be.
it was meant to be. And I'm not going to make any money on it. It's not even a money thing, because it's someone else's idea and story.
Yeah.
So at some point, I think after making it, I'm not going to ask for permission. I'm going to make it, and then I'm going to send a copy. Somehow I'm going to find Luc Besson's agent or whomever.
Yeah.
I'm going to send a copy to him, and then send a copy to Natalie Portman. I'm going to try to just get, after it's done. I'm not going to, because I'm a small guy. I'm like nobody to these people. I'm not going to ask him for permission. They're going to be like, who are you? What have you done? You haven't done anything noteworthy, so don't take my idea and butcher it. So I'm going to do it first and be like, this is an homage. This is me trying to say to you, I love your work, I admire your work, and I took the little skills that I have, gathered some of my friends, put in my own money and my friends' money, and this is what we think part 2 should be.
Yeah, Matilda needed more.
Matilda, you need, because he has the movie, oh, sorry, I'm getting really excited. The movie has a huge cult following. Everyone I ask about that movie, 8 out of 10 people is like, I love that movie. I'm like, yes, it's just not me. Yes, so that's what it is.
Cool. Well, you know what? We're going to end it on there. I just love that. You'll have to come back after it's all said and done, and we'll find out what's on, right?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, Nancy. I appreciate it. And hopefully we get to do it again.
Yeah, for sure. Just on camera for a second. I just wanted to say goodbye to everybody. And so you've been listening to Chris Rogers, and I hope you'll follow his work. I'm going to be airing this, so you'll be able to find him. If you're looking for him, you'll be able to find him. By the way, he's on Facebook, just in case you want to know that. Anyway, take care, everybody. Be nice and peace out.